I was standing in a hotel lobby in Birmingham, Alabama at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't find my car keys. Now, I know what you're thinking, Zig, what does this have to do with anything? Well, hang on, because this little moment taught me something profound about human nature. There I was, exhausted from a full day of speaking, patting down every pocket, checking my briefcase 3 times, retracing my steps like a bloodhound on a cold trail. The night clerk, a young fellow named Marcus, watched me with this mixture of amusement and concern. Finally, after about 10 minutes of my increasingly frantic search, he cleared his throat and said, "Sir, are you looking for these?" He held up my keys. They'd been sitting on the counter right in front of me the whole time. I laughed. What else could I do? And thanked him. But as I drove back to my room, something clicked in my mind. You see, I'd been so busy searching in all the wrong places, so focused on the complex possibilities, maybe I left them in the restaurant. Maybe they fell out in the parking lot that I completely missed what was right there in plain sight. And that's exactly what most people do with their lives. You see, right now there are millions of people who think they're missing something essential. They look at successful people and think, well, they've got something I don't have, some special talent, some gift I wasn't born with. And let me tell you something, my friend, that's one of the most destructive lies you can tell yourself. Because the truth is, you're not lacking talent. You're not missing some magical ingredient that was given to others but withheld from you. What you're lacking is direction. And that's an entirely different problem with an entirely different solution. Now, I want you to think about something for a moment. Have you ever watched a boat without a rudder? I have. Back when I was selling cookware, yes, I sold cookware door to door, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I took a weekend off and went fishing with a fellow named Johnny Williams. Johnny had this little aluminum boat, nothing fancy, and one day we discovered that the rudder pin had come loose. That boat had a perfectly good motor. The hull was sound. We had fuel in the tank, but without that rudder, we just went in circles. Around and around and around, burning gas, making noise, going nowhere. That's what talent without direction looks like. I've met some of the most naturally gifted people you could imagine who never accomplished a fraction of what they were capable of. I've known people who could sell ice to an Eskimo, who had the kind of charisma that lit up a room, who had minds sharper than a tack and twice as quick, but they went nowhere. Why? Because they were moving without a destination. They were busy. Oh my goodness, were they busy, but busy doing what? Going where? Toward what end? And then I've met people, and you have too, who seem to have been shortchanged in the talent department, people who had to work twice as hard to get half as far, people who struggled with things that came easily to others, but they knew where they were going. They had a target. They had a plan. And you know what? They left those talented folks in the dust. Let me tell you about Sarah Mitchell. I met Sarah in 1973 at a small business conference in Dallas. She came up to me after I spoke, and I could see she was nervous. Her hands were shaking a little as she introduced herself. She said, "Mr. Ziglar, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Do you think someone like me can really make it in sales?" I said, "Someone like you? What do you mean?" She explained that she had a speech impediment, a stutter that got worse when she was anxious. She had been told by 3 different sales managers that she didn't have what it takes, that sales required smooth talkers, natural communicators, people who could think on their feet and speak without hesitation. One of them had actually said to her, "Honey, maybe you should look into bookkeeping." I looked at her and said, "Sarah, can I ask you something? Do you know what you want? I mean, really know. Can you see it, feel it, taste it?" She didn't hesitate. "Yes, sir. I want to earn enough to send my 2 boys to college without them having to work 3 jobs like I did. I want to prove to them that their mama can build something from nothing. And I want to show myself that I'm more than what people say I can't do." I said, "Then you've got the most important thing. You've got direction. Now let's talk about getting there." You know what happened? Sarah Mitchell became one of the top insurance salespeople in the Southwest. Did her stutter go away? No. But she learned something that the smooth talkers never figured out. People don't buy from you because you're slick. They buy from you because they trust you, because they believe you care about solving their problem. And when Sarah spoke slowly, carefully, with those occasional pauses and repetitions, people leaned in. They listened. They felt her sincerity. Her weakness became her strength because she had clear direction and the determination to get there. Last I heard from her, both her boys graduated college debt-free, and she had built a business that employed 12 people. Now, here's what I want you to understand about direction. Direction is not the same thing as a wish. It's not the same as a dream. And it's certainly not the same as a vague hope that things will somehow work out. Direction is specific. Direction has coordinates. Direction requires you to make decisions, not someday, but right now, about where you're headed and what you're willing to do to get there. Think about it this way. If I told you I was taking a trip and you asked me where I was going, and I said, oh, somewhere nice, what would you think? You'd think I was either confused or I wasn't really going anywhere. But if I said, I'm driving to Phoenix, Arizona, leaving Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock, taking Route 40 West, planning to arrive by Thursday evening, staying at the Sheraton on Central Avenue. Well, now we're talking about an actual trip, aren't we? Your life works the same way. I want to be successful is somewhere nice. It's not direction. I want to earn $75,000 annually by developing expertise in database management, completing my certification by June, and applying to 10 companies that specifically need those skills. That's direction. You see the difference? One is fog, the other is a map. But here's where people get tripped up. They think direction means they have to have everything figured out from here to eternity. They think they need to see the entire staircase before they take the first step. And because they can't see it all, they don't take any step at all. They're waiting for perfect clarity, perfect confidence, perfect conditions. My friend, you're going to be waiting a long time. Perfect doesn't come to visit. You have to build it step by step. I remember when my wife, Jean, and I were first married, we had $45 in the bank. $45. And we owed $25,000. Now, we couldn't see exactly how we were going to get from negative $24,955 to financial stability, but we could see the next step. Pay a little more than the minimum this month. Take that extra job on Saturday, stop eating out, buy groceries instead, make coffee at home. We didn't need to see the whole staircase. We just needed to see the next step clearly enough to take it. And then the next one, and then the next one. That's direction. It's not necessarily seeing the destination in perfect detail, though that helps. It's about knowing which way is forward and which way is backward and consistently choosing forward. Now, let me tell you what happens when you lack direction. I've seen it 1,000 times, and maybe you're living it right now. When you lack direction, you become a reactor instead of an actor. Other people's urgencies become your priorities. Other people's goals become your schedule. You wake up at 40 or 50 years old and realize you've been living someone else's life, your parents' expectations, your spouse's dreams, your boss's agenda, society's definition of success. And here's the thing that really gets me. When you lack direction, you start to think the problem is you. You look at all the things you've tried and haven't finished, all the jobs you've started and left, all the projects you got excited about and abandoned, and you tell yourself, I guess I'm just not talented enough. I guess I'm just not smart enough. I guess I'm just not fill in the blank enough. But that's not it. That's not it at all. You're not lacking capability, you're lacking a target. You're shooting arrows without looking at where the bullseye is. And then you're surprised when they land everywhere except where you want them. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this. If someone gave you $10,000 right now and told you that you had to invest it in developing yourself, but you had to know exactly what skill or knowledge you were acquiring and exactly how you'd use it, what would you choose? Could you answer that question in 30 seconds? Could you give me specifics? If you can't, you don't have direction, and that's okay. I'm not judging you, but we need to fix it. We need to fix it today. Because here's what I've learned in over 40 years of working with people from every walk of life you can imagine. Talent is common. Talent is everywhere. I've met talented people waiting tables, driving trucks, answering phones, sitting in prison cells. Talent is not the scarce resource. Direction is the scarce resource. Focus is the scarce resource. Clarity about what you're building and why you're building it. That's what separates the people who make it from the people who wonder what happened. You know what else I've learned? Most people have more talent than they'll ever use. They've got abilities they haven't even discovered yet because they've never pointed those abilities at anything long enough to see what they can do. It's like having a drawer full of tools and never building anything. The tools are fine. The problem is there's no blueprint. There's no project. There's no clear picture of what you're trying to construct. I met a man named Robert Chen at a workshop I did in San Francisco back in 1981. Robert was 33 years old, working as a waiter, and he was frustrated. He said to me during a break, "Zig, I've tried everything. I've tried sales, I've tried real estate, I've tried starting 3 different businesses. Nothing works for me. I'm starting to think I'm just not cut out for success." I said, "Robert, can I ask you something? When you tried sales, what were you trying to sell and to whom?" He looked confused. "Well, whatever they gave me. Office supplies, then insurance, then..." I interrupted him gently. "And real estate, what kind of properties? Who were your target clients?" Just, whatever listings were available. Whoever walked in. I said, "And those 3 businesses?" He listed them. A landscaping company, a t-shirt printing business, and a computer repair service. 3 completely different industries with different skills, different customers, different challenges. I said, "Robert, you don't lack talent, you lack direction. You're like a race car driver who gets in a different car every lap and wonders why he never finishes the race. It's not the car. It's that you never complete enough laps to learn the track." We sat down, and I mean really sat down, and I asked him questions. What did he love doing so much that he'd do it even if nobody paid him? What problems did he see in the world that bothered him? What kind of people did he most enjoy helping? What did he want people to say about him at his funeral? After about an hour, something emerged. Robert's parents had immigrated from Taiwan. He'd grown up translating for them, helping them navigate American systems, watching them struggle with language and cultural barriers. And he realized right there in that conversation that what he really wanted to do was help other immigrant families succeed in business. He wanted to be a consultant and advocate for immigrant entrepreneurs. Did he have experience in consulting? No. Did he have a business degree? No. Did he have connections in that world? Not one. But you know what he had? Direction. Clear, specific, powerful direction. I saw Robert about 8 years later. He had built a thriving practice helping immigrant business owners with everything from business plans to loan applications to marketing strategies. He had written a book in English and Chinese. He was making 3 times what he had ever made before. And more importantly, he woke up every day knowing exactly why he was doing what he was doing. The talent had been there all along. The work ethic had been there. The intelligence had been there. What was missing was a target worthy of his aim. So let me get practical with you, because motivation without application is just entertainment. And I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to help you change your life. Here's what you need to do, starting today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. First, you need to write down your answer to this question. If you could only accomplish 3 things in the next 5 years, and those 3 things had to dramatically improve your life or the lives of people you care about, what would they be? Not 10 things, 3. Be specific. Get healthy is not specific. Lose 40 pounds and complete a 5K race by next September is specific. Be successful is not specific. Earn my CPA certification and increase my income to $65,000 is specific. Write them down. Put the paper somewhere. You'll see it every single day. On your bathroom mirror, on your car dashboard, in your wallet. I don't care where, just make sure you see it. Second, for each of those 3 goals, you need to identify the one skill or knowledge area that would most accelerate your progress. Not 3 skills, 1. the one that would be the biggest multiplier. If your goal is to start a business, maybe that skill is sales. Maybe it's financial management. Maybe it's digital marketing. Pick the one that would make the biggest difference and commit to becoming at least competent in it within the next 90 days. Third, you need to schedule it. I mean, literally put it on your calendar like it's a doctor's appointment. Tuesday and Thursday, 6 to 7 a.m., study marketing. Saturday morning, 8 to 11 a.m., practice sales calls. If it's not scheduled, it's not real. It's just a wish that you'll get to when you feel like it. And let me tell you something, you're never going to feel like it. Feelings follow action. They don't lead it. Fourth, you need to tell someone. Find one person, your spouse, a friend, a colleague, somebody, and tell them your 3 goals in your 90-day skill plan. Ask them to check in with you every 2 weeks. Accountability is like oxygen for goals. Without it, they suffocate quietly when nobody's looking. Fifth, and this is crucial, cut something out. You can't add a new direction to your life without removing something that's pulling you off course. Maybe it's 3 hours of television every night. Maybe it's scrolling through social media for 2 hours a day. Maybe it's hanging around with people who talk about dreams but never do anything about them. Something has to go. Your life is full right now. If you want to add something important, you have to remove something unimportant. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Zig, that sounds great, but you don't understand my situation. I've got responsibilities. I've got bills to pay. I can't just quit my job and chase some dream. I've got kids to feed. I've got aging parents to take care of. I don't have the luxury of focusing on personal goals. And you're absolutely right. You can't quit your responsibilities. Nobody's asking you to. But can I tell you something? The people who love you and depend on you, they need you to have direction even more than you do. Because a person without direction, a person just grinding through each day without a larger purpose, eventually becomes bitter or depressed or resentful. And that affects everyone around them. Your kids don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be working towards something. They need to see what it looks like when an adult has a clear target and moves toward it consistently. That's the lesson that changes their life. Your spouse doesn't need you to already be successful. They need you to be engaged in becoming more than you are today. They need to be married to someone who's growing, not someone who's given up. And here's the beautiful thing. Direction doesn't require you to have extra time. It requires you to use your current time differently. You're already spending 8 hours a day working. Are you pointing those hours towards something, or are you just collecting a paycheck? You're already spending evenings and weekends doing something. Are you investing that time or just killing it? Direction transforms ordinary activities into stepping stones. The same job that feels like prison when you have no direction becomes valuable work experience when you're using it to learn skills you'll need for your next step. The same struggles that feel meaningless when you're drifting become powerful lessons when you know where you're headed. I'll never forget something that happened to me in 1972. I was speaking at a small community college in Tennessee, and after the program, a janitor, a man named Willie, probably in his late 50s, came up to me. He waited till everyone else had left, and then he said, Mr. Ziglar, can I ask you something? I said, of course. He said, I've been mopping these floors for 14 years, same floors, same halls, day after day. I know you talk about goals and direction and all that, but what does that mean for somebody like me? I'm not going to be a businessman. I'm not going to give speeches. I'm going to mop floors until I retire. So what's the point? I looked at this man, and I could see the weariness in his eyes, but I could also see something else, a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was something more. I said, Willie, can I ask you a question? When you mop these floors, what are you really doing? He looked at me like I'd lost my mind. I'm mopping floors. I said, no, sir. You're creating an environment where young people can learn safely and comfortably. You're making it possible for teachers to teach and students to focus on their education instead of worrying about germs and dirt. You're part of the reason some kid from a struggling family might get the education that changes their entire life trajectory. Now, is that worth doing well? Is that worth taking pride in? Something changed in his face. He stood a little straighter. I continued, and if you wanted to, you could have direction even within this work. You could become the best floor technician in the entire school system. You could learn about different cleaning compounds, different techniques for different surfaces. You could train other janitors. You could turn your 14 years of experience into expertise that makes you valuable. You could set a goal to make these the cleanest, shiniest, most well-maintained floors in the state. Would that change anything? He smiled the first real smile I'd seen from him. It would change everything. 3 years later, I got a letter from Willie. He'd not only become the head of maintenance for that community college, he'd also enrolled in night classes and was working toward his high school equivalency diploma. He wrote, "You helped me see that direction isn't about what job you have, it's about where you're going from wherever you are right now." That's the truth, my friend. Direction isn't about your current circumstances, it's about your current trajectory. Are you moving towards something or away from it? Are you building something or just passing time? Are you becoming more or just getting older? You see, here's what happens when you get clear direction. Everything changes, but nothing changes. Let me explain what I mean by that. Your circumstances might be exactly the same tomorrow morning as they are today. You might wake up in the same bed, go to the same job, face the same challenges. Nothing external has changed. But everything internal has changed because you now know what you're building toward. You now have a reason to push through the hard days. You now have a filter for making decisions. Does this move me closer to my target or further away? That's the power of direction. It doesn't change your starting point, but it completely transforms your path forward. And let me tell you something else about direction. Once you have it, you start to see opportunities that were invisible before. Have you ever noticed how when you're thinking about buying a certain car, you suddenly see that car everywhere? It's not that there are more of them on the road. They were always there. You just weren't tuned in to notice them. The same thing happens with opportunities. When you have clear direction, your brain becomes alert to anything that could help you get there. You hear a conversation at lunch that gives you an idea. You see a job posting that aligns perfectly with your plan. You meet someone at your kid's soccer game who happens to work in the field you're trying to enter. These aren't coincidences, or rather they are, but you're only noticing them because you've given your brain a clear filter. Pay attention to anything related to this goal. People without direction miss these opportunities entirely. They're there, but they're invisible because there's no lens to see them through. Now, I want to address something that might be bothering you. Maybe you're thinking, but Zig, what if I pick the wrong direction? What if I commit to something and then realize it's not right for me? What if I waste years going the wrong way? That's a fair question, and here's my answer. Moving in a clear direction, even if it turns out to be the wrong one, is infinitely better than standing still waiting for perfect certainty. You know why? Because motion creates information. When you're moving towards something specific, you learn. You discover what you like and what you don't. You develop skills. You meet people. You build experience. And if you need to adjust course later, you're adjusting from a position of movement and knowledge, not from a position of paralysis and ignorance. The people who wait for perfect certainty never start. They spend their whole lives waiting for the fog to clear, not realizing that fog only clears when you start walking through it. And here's another thing. Direction isn't necessarily permanent. I'm not asking you to carve your goals in stone. I'm asking you to write them in ink, knowing that you can cross them out and write new ones if circumstances change or you gain new information. The point is to have something written down that's guiding your daily choices right now. You know what the real tragedy is? It's not aiming at something and missing. It's having all this talent, all this potential, all this life, and never pointing it at anything meaningful. It's being like that boat with no rudder engine running, going in circles, burning through your days and your energy and your one precious life without ever arriving anywhere that matters. You were not put on this earth to wander. You were not created to drift. You were not given your unique combination of experiences, challenges, perspectives, and abilities just to kill time until you die. There's something you can build, something you can contribute, some problem you can solve, some life you can improve, including your own. But you've got to decide what it is. You've got to get specific. You've got to point your talent at something. Remember Sarah Mitchell with her stutter? Remember Robert Chen changing careers every year? Remember Willie the janitor? None of them got new talents. They just finally got direction for the talents they already had. And that made all the difference. So let me ask you directly, what are you aiming at? If I check back with you in 5 years, what would have to be true for you to look back and say, those were 5 years well spent? What would you need to have accomplished? Who would you need to have become? What difference would you need to have made? Can you answer that right now? If you can't, that's your real problem. That's the only problem that matters. Because once you can answer that, everything else becomes a logistics problem. How do I get from here to there? What skills do I need? What steps do I take? Those are solvable problems. But you can't solve them until you know where there is. Think about it like this. If you got in your car right now to drive to my house, you'd need my address, wouldn't you? I want to visit Zig isn't enough. You need to know where I live. And once you know that, you can figure out the route. You can use a map. You can ask for directions. You can adjust if you hit traffic or construction. But without the address, you can't even start the trip. Your life works the same way. I want to be successful, or I want to be happy, or I want to make a difference. Those are nice sentiments, but they're not addresses. They won't get you anywhere because you don't know where anywhere is. But I want to open a coffee shop that employs people with disabilities and provides job training, or I want to become a certified financial counselor and help families get out of debt, or I want to write and publish a book teaching kids about science through fun experiments. Those are addresses. Those are destinations. Those give you something to navigate toward. And here's the beautiful thing. Once you have that clear destination, the journey becomes meaningful even when it's difficult. The hard days don't defeat you because you know why you're pushing through them. The setbacks don't destroy you because you know they're just detours, not dead ends. The criticism doesn't crush you because you're not looking to other people for validation. You're looking at your target and asking yourself, am I getting closer? That's what direction gives you. It gives you resilience. It gives you purpose. It gives you a reason to wake up tomorrow and try again. And let me tell you, that's worth more than talent. Talent is nice, talent helps, but I'll take a person with average talent and clear direction over a person with exceptional talent and no direction every single time. Why? Because the person with direction will outwork, outfocus, outpersist, and ultimately outachieve the talented drifter every single time. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to sit down with a piece of paper. At the top, write this question. If failure was impossible and I could create any future I wanted, what would I build? Then write for 10 minutes without stopping. Don't edit yourself. Don't worry about whether it's realistic or possible. Just write what comes to your mind. Then tomorrow morning, I want you to read what you wrote and ask yourself, what would be one step, just one clear, specific step toward this future? Not the whole journey, just the next step. And then I want you to take that step this week. That's how you develop direction. That's how you stop wasting your talent. That's how you transform from someone who's just busy into someone who's building something that matters. Because you see, we come full circle to where we started, me standing in that hotel lobby, searching everywhere for keys that were right in front of me. The problem wasn't that the keys didn't exist. The problem was that I was looking in all the wrong places, making it more complicated than it needed to be. Your talent is like those keys. It's not missing. It's not hiding. It's right there in front of you. You're just looking in the wrong place. You're asking the wrong question. You're not asking, what am I capable of? You're asking, what am I pointed at? Point your talent at something specific, something meaningful, something that matters to you, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish. Keep your talent unpointed, undirected, scattered across a dozen vague wishes and someday maybes. And you'll be back here in 10 years wondering why nothing ever worked out, still thinking you're not talented enough. The choice is yours. It's always been yours. And you need to make it today, right now, because direction doesn't develop itself. It doesn't emerge from nowhere. You have to choose it. You have to claim it. You have to write it down and commit to it and take that first step toward it. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep searching for keys that are already in your hand, or are you going to pick them up and finally unlock the life you're capable of living? The answer to that question will determine everything that comes next. Now get started. Your future is waiting, and it's not going to build itself.